going to create a force of our spirit, and this is going to dominate the factors of our life. This force of spirit is what we're looking for. We're going to try to get away from dealing with everything with our material feelings, our material senses all the time, and start using our spirit. And to do that, we created what is called the force of the spirit. You have a force of your material self. You have this big ego, this persona of self. Maybe when you stand up and speak to other people, you're very aggressive, or maybe you're an angry person, or maybe you're very soft, or maybe you're very tender, or whatever it is. But you have a persona about you. And for the most part, you're used to using that all of the time. It becomes a habit, and you deal with everything using just your material persona. So you greatly limit your view of the world. You limit your reactions, how you can possibly react to things in the world. And most importantly, you really limit your ability to grow. Okay, we're going to get more into that into a minute. There's two essential parts of meditation which are very important. One is the attention that you pay to the object you're going to meditate on, and the clarity of knowledge about it. Now let's define here what an object is, because I'm going to use this word a lot. An object of a meditation is whatever you're directing your meditative exercise towards. Let's say you just want to meditate on stop smoking. Okay, so the object now of our meditation is smoking. It's the object of whatever we turn our meditative attention to. And let's say for the sake of our discussion here for a while that we're going to meditate on stop smoking, all right? So there's two factors that deal with this meditation principle. The attention to the object of smoking and the clarity of knowledge about what we learn about it. Okay? The main value of meditation in everyday life is the clear and keen observation of very small things leading all the way up to the highest possible goals we may want to obtain. So let me say that again. The main value of meditation in everyday life is the clear and keen observation which leads, of course, to the awareness of small things all the way to the highest goal. So what we're going to learn to do now is to see things actually for what they really are. We're going to very purely observe things. And one of the first things I want to talk about now is the observation, the pure observation itself. You see, clear and keen observation is the observation of what's going on at the moment. Okay? Let's say we'll relate that to smoking. And let's say I've got a pack of cigarettes here. I don't smoke, by the way, but let's say if I did, I had a pack of cigarettes here. And I look over at the pack of cigarettes, and immediately, when I look at the pack of cigarettes, if I was a smoker, I remember when I did, my first reaction would be, sure, there's a little pleasure there. Sure would be nice to have a cig about right now. Because we have connected to these cigarettes all these great feelings of pleasure, right? So we think to ourselves, we've already taught ourselves that if I smoke, I'll feel better. If I smoke, I may look cool. If I smoke, I can use this as a crutch for a few moments while I'm nervous. If I smoke, it's right after dinner, I'll just enjoy the feeling I get from it. Or maybe I like the feeling of the smoke rolling up my nose or whatever. But we connect many different, emotions and feelings to something that we do. So when we first, observe this package of cigarettes, all these pre-programmed things are what's going to immediately run through our mind. Right? Well, these are all material things that we have created. Someone who has never seen a package of cigarettes and has no idea what it is will not think of any of these things, will he? You see someone, if we got them from, say, Planet 13 or something, they came here and we showed them a pack of cigarettes, they wouldn't have any idea what it is, and they wouldn't have any emotional responses to it, they wouldn't have any feelings connected to it. And this is kind of what we're after, trying to get back to the ability to see things clearly as they are at the moment. It's the immediate perception, observation, and attentiveness of the human being that we're after, to be able to see things very clearly. See, the individual, we're only receivers, but we do not want to influence the object of observation through our own will, emotions, thought forms. We don't want to exert any influence on evaluating, which will lead to a reaction that we'll have to a product. When we see the cigarette, then, part of our meditative exercise would be to see it exactly just for what it really is. Okay? We're only after the pure facts, just the clean and pure observation of the object. So we would see it, we want to try to see that package of cigarettes again, just as if just the same way the guy from Planet 13 would. That, like we don't even really know what it is. The first thing all we would see was that it's a small box. and maybe it has some writing on it. We have no attachment to it whatsoever, okay? It's unavoidable at the beginning, though, when you start trying to learn to meditate, that you're going to, anytime you try to observe anything, some of your own evaluations and ideas and reactions are going to come into play. It's only a natural thinking, because our normal habits of thinking, we don't use concentration or observation very much, and it almost assures that a lot of strange thoughts and ideas are going to come into play. If you've ever tried to concentrate on any one thing for a length of time, even 10 seconds, you'll find out how very difficult it is to concentrate your thought on anything. We're not used to controlling, there's no maintenance in our thought processes. We're not taught how to use our brain in this world. Some of us figure it out a little bit better and go to some classes for it, but for the most part, we're just like free thinking, random people with all sorts of thoughts just rambling around in our head all the time. And I challenge any of you, unless you're to stop right now and try to concentrate on anything for 5 seconds without having another thought enter. Of course, if you're a practiced meditative person, then all this is already known to you and you can probably do that. But this is what we're after. We're going to try to develop some powers of concentration so that we can not only observe something very clearly, that we can form in our spirit a logical, brand new thought all about this object that we're meditating on, and we'll put some force into that. Okay? And we'll learn then to concentrate on that particular object for long periods of time. And then a lot of wonderful things happen then. Our force of spirit develops, our abilities of concentration will increase. Okay? The amount of time that we spend on practicing the meditative exercise will depend, of course, on how good you get at it and how clearly you can actually see things. When a person's value judgments, evaluations, and other reactions to an object emerge, we have to get in the habit of just like dashing them out of our mind, telling them they're not important so that the pure observation can dominate our actions. Once we do that, then very slowly there's this feeling of inner freedom about the object of our meditation. I'll tell you a little story. When I was younger, when I was learning to, I didn't even call it meditation. I just had a natural habit of how I would kind of like dream when kids do. And I had the little thing that I always did when I wanted to get thoughts out of my mind so I could go off into my little spirit world or other dimension world where I wanted to go all the time. I developed a little game I would play. And you might want to make up something similar to this. And this was a game or kind of a plan of action I would always go through so I could focus my attentions and learn to concentrate just on one particular thing. And what I would do then, I would imagine all of my daily problems, my thoughts and everything. I would see myself standing at a bus stop. I was the only one there. And I would tell myself that pretty soon a bus is going to be here, and I'm going to load all of my problems, all of my thoughts, my material thoughts on this bus. And I'm going to send them on the bus, and the bus will be back in the morning. See, I would do this when I would go to sleep generally. And all these thoughts would be back in the morning, so I didn't have to worry about anything in my material world right now. It could be I would do this at sleep, or if I just wanted to, drift out for 10 minutes and go somewhere. So here would come the bus. I'd see the bus coming and my thoughts. I would put all of my thoughts and feelings. I'd see them march right on the bus with little legs on them, all my problems about, if it was a girlfriend or school or lunch or problem with the parents or whatever. I'd see it get right on the bus. And once it would get on the bus, I'd see it drive away. And I did this so many times that I had myself programmed that once the bus pulled away, I no longer had any connection to any of those thoughts. They would not come into my mind at all. Immediately then I would see myself walking into a theater. No one in the theater, just rows of seats there and a big blank screen. And I'd sit down in my seat right in the front row, right in the middle. This is my own theater. And the screen was my form of concentration. And when I was all calmed down, because there was no other thoughts in my mind now, they were all on the bus. And I got so good at it that my mind was almost blank at this point. I just sat in the chair. There was a big knob right in front of me. And when I was all ready, I would tell myself that I will now let go of my material self, and I am going to go into my spirit, and I'm going to observe whatever is on the screen. And I would see myself reach forward and turn the knob. And as I turned the knob, the screen, I would just wait. Whatever would come on the screen, I would just observe it. And for some reason, I seemed to know at an early age not to get involved in the screen, to just be an observer. I would never cause any images to come on the screen. And once they did come on the screen, because it will happen naturally, I would never get involved in what was going on in there. Occasionally I did. I mean, I was just a kid. I'd get into it sometimes. But for the most part, I was learning how wonderful it was to just watch the screen like a movie. I mean, things would happen, ideas and visions that come on this screen. I had no idea where they would come from. And I didn't know what I was really doing. I didn't realize that I was really like getting into my own spirit and allowing ideas from the past and the future and things that are within my own spiritual self to come forward on this screen. But I did seem to have the presence of mind somehow to know, even back then, not to get involved and not to cause things to happen on the screen. And once they did come on the screen, not to put any of my own material self into it, just to be an observer and watch. It was like watching a movie for the first time you go see it. You don't know what's going to happen next. And I would get into that mode. That's how I related it to a movie theater. Because in a movie, when you go see a film at the movie the first time, you don't know what's going to happen from scene to scene. You just observe it. You just watch. Of course, in a movie, you get all involved, excited and so forth, and you see yourself as the hero or whatever after the bad guy. But that's the general idea, that we want to observe things as they happen and learn to get ourselves in that position where we can get rid of all of our material problems, emotions and attitudes and things that bother us. So you may want to use a bus also if you like. Of course, maybe you'd rather use a UFO and just have them fly off in a UFO. What happens is that once you practice this a little bit and you get in this habit of being able to feel this inner feeling of inner spiritual self coming along, this feeling you get when the material crap is all out of the way, well, there's a very familiar mental attitude that sets in, and you can call upon that easily. The more practice you get at it, you can call that feeling back. That place in your mind can come back very quickly, where it doesn't take you very long to get there. Pure observation, like what I'm talking about here, to purely observe and concentrate on something and to block out all other thoughts, obviously is not recommended for all life situations. This is the kind of exercise that you want to do on purpose at home when you're alone by yourself. It's certainly not something that you want to do in your day-to-day life. If you're out driving the car and you suddenly decide to meditate and concentrate on something, you're liable to go totally blank and run into a wall. If you're doing exercises or you're playing sports or something, you don't want to blank out just when the ball has been thrown to you. So it's not a practical thing to be doing during day-to-day words, deeds, actions sort of lifestyle. But the logic that you're going to learn from it can apply. Because as we talk more and more about this, we're going to learn a lot about ourselves, and the logic that we learn about ourselves and the steps we use to create a meditative exercise can be very useful, though, in daily life. The process of observing serves us in many conditions in daily life, and that's very important. The pure observation is recommended really just as an exercise, I say. And to begin with, it can be just as simple as what I call sports meditation. It can be a very just easy, relaxing thing, doing nothing more than casually observing your breath just to calm down and relax. Okay, it's very good for that. I once had a job as a computer programmer working for a major company, and I had for about a year or so, I was in a very high-stress job where there was an awful lot of work given to me that had to be done on a timely basis, and I had a lot of people under me that were waiting all the time for the results of my work. So I had a lot of stress, and there was more work than I could really get done, so I was always showing up a little early and pushing real hard. Consequently, I was so intent all the time on getting my work done that when it was time for lunch, I was so keyed up, I couldn't begin to hardly think about lunch. And once I finally did force myself to go get some food, I'd always bring it right back to my desk so I could go back to work. And then I'd find myself stuffing my face with a sandwich or whatever while I'm doing more work, trying to get it done over the lunch hour. Well, of course, this leads to a lot of problems. You don't chew your food at all. You don't even remember what you ate. You just kind of inhale it and swallow it, and you get stomach aches or whatever, but it's certainly not conducive to good eating habits. So what I developed was another little game, kind of like the bus deal, but I just saw myself, and I used the bus. I would see all my work problems, situations, and things that I had to get done, get on the bus. I would calm myself down, and I would use my screen. And on my screen, though, this time, I would always tell myself that the words relax, R-E-L-A-X, would come on the screen, one letter at a time, and they would go through a series of color changes each